just saw the fun aspect. So I will start again now with sound. Hi, welcome to the first End of Nations live stream. I am Elizabeth Toby, and I am here with senior producer Chris Lena. And our community manager Lance James is off camera but with us.
Hi everybody.
And he will be the driver today in all the gameplay. But for people who may be new to the game, why don't you explain a little bit about what End of Nations is?
Sure. End of Nations is a persistent online real-time strategy game. We really are taking advantage of this, of online and making kind of the most massive RTS game that we can make. So we have a bunch of different maps where you play from like a 1 versus 1 all the way up to 56 players all playing on the same map. And this all happens in a persistent world, so not only is your character persistent, you create a commander of one of the two factions when you first start, whether a Shadow Revolution or Liberation Front. And then in the PvP matches, you're continually fighting each other for control of actual territory on the global map. So a 24/7 battle for territory control. And all this while you're gaining experience, going up levels, unlocking new units and structures and abilities, and pretty much building your reputation as well as your character as you go on in all these different types of maps, different sizes, and game types.
Everything okay, Lance?
Can you check your audio?
My audio again?
Yeah.
Are you touching those wires at all?
No.
When I talk, does the sound go away?
People are saying it's going in and out.
No, we sound okay. So, guys, if the audio is going in and out, I apologize. I'm going to make sure that Lance doesn't accidentally jiggle the wires. It does.
I don't accidentally jiggle.
Lame.
Sound okay. I know it's probably the voodoo person, but also refresh the stream, or if you're on 720p, maybe bring it down. But if you're seeing the stream, no, don't touch the wires, man. All right. How about we talk about the two different factions?
Okay.
And explain a little bit about them, and then we will go and get to the good stuff and show you some gameplay, which I know you guys really want. And also, as you can see, I will be looking over to the side. I have a laptop here, so I can see all of your questions. So please feel free to ask. I'll scroll through and try and get Chris to answer some of those questions throughout the broadcast. Tell us about the factions.
Right. So the main story of the game is that there is this big evil group called the Order of Nations that have taken over a large part of the globe, and these two player factions, Liberation Front and Shadow Revolution, are both fighting against the Order of Nations. So there's maps in which these two factions are fighting together against the Order of Nations. But these factions also don't agree with how the world should look afterwards. So they all have different points of view about how the world should work. So Liberation Front is much more of your kind of drive up Main Street, shoot your big cannon sort of a group, interested in bringing back democracy and freedom for all, and their own point of view of democracy and freedom. And then Shadow Revolution are actually ex-Order of Nations people that are, their gameplay style is much different. Lots of stealth, hit and run, little more technical, techno-savvy. And, they believe that the Order of Nations was close to getting it right, but not quite, that their idea of dictatorship was not quite right, and they have a much better idea about how to lead the people to a better world.
Do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do.
Are you going to tell anyone?
No.
So, Lance, how about we hand it over to you and get them what they really want, which is some gameplay? So we're going to go on in and check out Icebreaker. They really want, which is some gameplay. So we're going to go on in and check out
Icebreaker is a 2 versus 2 map. PvP, where each side has a base. Icebreaker is a 2 versus 2. The ultimate idea is to destroy the other side's base. Each base also has a shield on it. A lot of our maps have to do with taking and holding different kinds of control. In this map, there are 3 control points that control the shields. So if a side is able to take 2 of the 3 control points, the opposing side's shields go down, and then you can attack their base and destroying their base using the map. There's also 2 other points, they're resource points on this map, using map. And by taking and holding those, you get a larger trickle of these tactical resources that you can use to lay down tactical structures like turrets, use your commander abilities that you get from leveling up.
One sec. Lance, in the background, are you playing our stream on your browser? One sec. Lance, in the background, are you playing our stream on your browser? Yeah, that might be maddening. Sorry, guys. So we are going back into the game.
Great. This is fantastic.
It is fantastic. This is how they know that this is not pre-recorded. So can you talk a little bit about who Lance is playing right now? You know, what faction, what he's doing?
Lance is playing Liberation Front, Truth, Freedom, and Justice, specifically Spartan class, I believe, and he is fielding units that are the Titan, which is one of the larger tanks for the Spartan class, and also Archimedes, which are fast-moving strike vehicles that can shoot out these tactical observer orbs that can reveal their area of awareness in places where the fog of war haven't been lifted. So they're good for scouting, for instance, is one thing they're good for. Also, pretty good anti-air. The whole game works on the units work on more of a rock, paper, scissors balance. So each unit you have is particularly good against some other type of unit. Where the Archimedes is pretty good against air. The Titan has a special ability called Explosive Shot, which can, one shot kill a bunch of different turrets. So they have a lot of different uses. Also a lot of health those Titan tanks have, but also slow moving.
And those Titan tanks are the ones that everybody in the stream is saying they're giant.
They're giant, but there are bigger ones. And there they are. There's some, I think those are Colossus.
Oh, those are giant.
Which are even more giant. Everything's bigger.
So how do you really, when you go into a game, you have a company. What if you have selected a company that is complete bollocks against someone else's?
Right. So you can change your company in the middle of the match. I guess I should step back and mention that, in our game, you field your units outside the map. So you're not building units while you're playing a match. You have an armory, outside the map, where you have your collection of units, and you choose which ones you want to bring into the map. And that's the same for structures as well as abilities. But if you feel like you've gone on the map and you have the wrong thing, you can switch your company for any other pre-built company you might have. There's just a penalty and resources and time to make that change, but you're never really stuck with just the units you brought in if you don't feel like that's working for you. And we found a lot of players actually have strategies where they pre-plan to change their company mid-battle. Right?
Makes sense.
Like they want to start with the fast-moving vehicles in the beginning to take control points, and they'll switch to more defensive vehicles to hold control points. So a lot of strategy just in that switching of companies as well.
That does make sense. So for this, what's his main strategy that he's going for right now? And Lance, feel free to chime in if you can. I mean, one of the things that I've known and why we're going a little easy on Lance right now is it's really difficult to play a strategy game and also try and narrate it at the same time. But so what's going on right now?
And your skill level does factor into that as well. So.
What are you trying to say?
I think there's some smack talking going on, is what I think.
He's just jealous.
Yeah, and I want to point also a few more things about the map, so this all makes a little more sense. So I mentioned that the idea of the map is to destroy the other side's base, but each base also has factories that are spitting out automated units that'll fight for you. So there's a steady stream of units coming off to the other side to help you fight, and you can spend those tactical resources from the resource points to upgrade those points too. So it's another tactic in which you may want to play the game, is spending your resources to upgrade those to have AI units fight on your side.
So also one of the things that is a surprise that I've kind of been teasing in the stream is that people who ask questions may get, eventually an alpha invite. So I'm going to pull the laptop up right now and I'm going to look through, ask some good questions that, hopefully Chris can answer some of them, and maybe you will get a sorry, Lance, do you also have Skype running on your computer?
Quite possibly.
Okay. You are now seeing everything that we use to make the community team go in the background. So anyway, as he is closing down Skype, can you guys ask some good questions for us? Halo. Will there be a unit that will take up all of your unit points? I know the games like Warhammer have them. What's your thought process on that?
I doubt we'll have a unit that takes up every single one of your points for your loadout. We do have hero units. Lance doesn't have one slotted right now, but that usually are higher priced items and they have some unique abilities to them. But there's no current plans to have something take up the entire loadout. Although the flexibility of our system, there's no reason why we couldn't create a special map in which you only field one unit and that's part of the game type. But we're always looking at ways to kind of stress our system and think of new ways to play the game.
And Pasty is Tasty, which is an awesome name, by the way. You asked about Collector's Edition and retail boxes, and we do have something right now called the Founders Edition that you can pre-order. If you go to endofnations.com, you can find it there.
Yep.
It's got some really cool perks. So just for people who are interested and want to pre-order the game, you can. Of course, the game is free to play for those who want to.
Yeah, it's not necessary by any stretch of the imagination to buy any of those offerings.
And You Cool says, is End of Nations a competitive game? And obviously, it's very competitive, but can you talk a little bit about, the fact that this is online and who you're playing against?
We have a lot of PvP maps here, so just by that nature, there's competition. But it's a different kind of competition than maybe you've seen in other strategy games. So for instance, maybe you'd call it a traditional RTS game, it's a lot of 1 versus 1, and it's really like this sort of high-stress, competitive actions per minute gameplay. We're in a game like this where you have maps that are 28 versus 28, 8 versus 8, 12 versus 12. You really can be competitive in more of a team spirit. So you don't have to be stressed out about being the one guy competing. You can be the one guy who's helping out the 12th guy on a team of 12. So it's a lot more friendlier competition if you're not into that high-stress traditional RTS sort of competition.
Yeah. So one more question for now, before we go and talk a little bit more about how Lance is doing. Someone asked, is this a pay-to-win game? Which I know is a loaded question, but I'm still going to ask you.
It's not loaded. We're not. So, all the maps are free to everyone. We're not selling the different maps. All the classes, the factions, all that comes absolutely for free. And in general, we use a dual currency system similar to other games where you can buy things in wealth as well as real currency. And if someone feels that something is pay to win, everyone has their different opinion, but we'll look at it. We're looking at this game in the long term, right? We want people to play with us forever. That's how we win. So it's in our best interest to make sure people feel good about playing the game.
So we've been, a couple minutes into this battle. How long does a battle usually last? I know this is going to depend based on, type of map, but how long do things usually run, and where is Lance right now in terms of his battle towards victory?
Well, it depends on the map size, so the number of people playing usually is some factor, but most maps finish anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes. Now, a lot of these maps like this one where you have to hold control points to bring down shields in order to destroy a base, there can be a lot of back and forth, and that back and forth can last much longer in some matches. But in general, 20 minutes is a good average time. In this particular map, I don't think anyone has brought down the shields yet. Is that right, Lance?
Shields have been back and forth.
Yeah. So it's hard to tell where they are in the actual battle. Are you winning, Lance?
We are winning.
Good. Are you stomping them, or is it a fair fight?
It's a good fight. Playing against our balanced team right now, so they do play quite a bit. They know all the ins and outs.
Who's your partner? Is it someone else on the team?
Yeah, I've got a guy on the balanced team actually as my partner right now. So far, so good.
Is that a bright pink tank you've got
Red.
going on there?
It's actually red.
I don't believe that's red.
This is one of our skins, by the way. It's definitely red.
I don't know about that.
So someone is asking about leveling in the game.
Yes, let's do it.
Tell me about leveling.
So we, you play matches and you gain experience for when you're playing those matches, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose, you're going to be always gaining experience. And as you gain experience, you go up in a level, and when you level, you gain a build point that you use in your research tree, and that tree unlocks structures, units, and abilities. So that's the direct part of leveling. The indirect part of leveling is you're also always earning wealth that you can spend on stuff, and you're also building up that army of yours over time, which is a huge part of the game. So not only just I got my point or two and I can spend it and gain access to something new, you also have to build up your companies and your loadouts and have different setups for different types of maps and different types of play.
So in terms of leveling, I'm one of those people that agonizes over any sort of research or skill tree, and then of course reads a guide after a while and decides that everything I've done is complete crap.
Right.
What happens for that kind of player? How do you explore different play styles, and can you redo? Can you start from scratch?
Yeah, I mean you can respec your tree, so you can start over if you want to with that character. You can always just create a new character if you want. I mean, we have 4 different classes in those over those 2 factions, so we definitely encourage people to try the different factions of the classes to try to fit your play style. It's one of the reasons why we tried to define the factions in that way too. So hopefully, right off the bat, you have a good idea of the kind of play style you're going to fit in. Are you sneaky, or are you more rather blow things up? I guess is the smartest way, the quickest way to say it.
I'm a blow things up kind of person.
I thought you were more sneaky.
I don't know what that says about me. Somebody says, is there a level cap? Ecor says that.
Yes, there is a level cap. I don't think we've announced it yet. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Well, you can just say that and tease it.
Yeah, but there is a cap, and we'll plan on expanding that over time as the game grows. But we're much more concerned about making matches that are fun to play with other players rather than putting people on some sort of power treadmill.
So let's take a step back and try and explain a little bit more about what people are seeing on the screen. Obviously, I think the bread and butter of it is all of the action, but he's also doing a lot of clicking on all of the units, and as you were saying, the buildings and everything. Can you talk more about what that entire module is?
Yeah, so
what he's doing?
Kind of want to focus on the bottom of the screen, which is his loadout tray, his company. It has all his units and structures and abilities in there that all have point values that he built beforehand. Every unit in the game also has a unit ability, so learning how to use those is important, but also it kind of determines how much micromanaging you want to do of your units. So the different classes play differently, and your unit selections play into this as well. If you are more of the person who likes to micromanage, who maybe prefers to have high actions per minute or something, there's certain classes and setups you can do where you're doing a lot of clicking and hotkeys for unit abilities, placing structures, moving around a lot, and there's more that other combinations of units that require less of that, maybe something that's more defensive and kind of hunker down in certain areas. So we want to try to have play styles for all those different people. Lance in particular, I think, is a little bit in between here. He has a good number of turrets. I think he has those machine gun turrets, if I can see that from here, which is great anti-air. And since his Titan tanks cannot attack air, that's great to have as support to kind of shore up what his units are weak at. And he also has 2 commander abilities. He has 1 attack ability. Oh, he won!
He won!
Yep.
Don't say that was such a surprise.
Well.
Definitely.
So, victory. I wasn't even paying attention.
So while you're queuing up for the next map, you can also, turn around maybe and give us a little insight into some of the skills that you just used and how you made your way to victory. Give a little bit of insight into your own kind of play style, maybe? Of course, he's queuing up, so now I'm asking him a bunch of questions that he can't answer.
His playstyle is in general to exploit the current bugs.
Really? They just get mad at me. But either way, so I was shooting a Spartan commander, and they're more about the larger tanks, more high hit points, high damage. They're very slow, and they don't have a lot of... slow is their main weakness, but at the same time, they don't have a lot of other options. So if I wanted to try to sneak around the map, couldn't do it really. If I wanted to try and go long range, couldn't really do it. They're really all about the heavy tanks with high health and trying to take down a point.
And I guess that leads into a good question in the give and take of each unit. I mean, as you said, there's no super unit. So how do you balance out, and especially with the companies that he was playing with, the strengths and the weaknesses to make sure that the company is well-rounded, but yet still not invincible?
Yeah, so that the size of your map and who you're playing with kind of goes directly into that. So in a 2v2, it's a little bit harder to work with your teammate about kind of filling in all the holes. So there's a little bit of, what is the other team going to field makes a big change right in the beginning. When you have larger 4 versus 4 especially, or 8 versus 8, being a good team and getting with people ahead of time and saying, I'm going to do anti-air, okay, well, I'm going to do a lot of infantry and which are really good at capping points, and making those plans ahead of time is a good way to plan for those. But also, you can change your company midstream, and a good way also, which kind of Lance was doing there, was to use his structures and abilities to make up for his units, units difficulties.
Someone's asking about in-game resources and what they are, their importance, how they sway the battle.
Yeah, so we have one general resource that's in the map. These tactical resources are used for everything that resources are used for, which is if your units die, you can bring them back at the starting point using those resources, placing tactical structures, abilities, and sometimes things like upgrading those automated factories in that map also use resources, so things in map as well. Those disappear when you leave the map. They're just for that particular game. Outside of that, by playing these matches, you earn wealth. And that currency is what you use to, if you want to buy another Titan tank, for instance, you can use wealth to do that. But you're not mining ore.
We don't like ore.
We do not like ore.
You heard it here first. We do not like ore.
Well, I don't want to click around the map all the time looking for ore. I want to fight.
So that's, the main focus. So for building different kinds of maps, I know we're only seeing one today, and just so you guys know that these live streams will be a semi-regular occurrence, so you'll get to see a lot of cool stuff moving forward, but just a little tease, how do you decide, you say, you go from 2 to 56, how do you decide the different kinds of maps, the different kinds of engagements, how do you build when you're scaling that large?
Well, our philosophy here in the beginning was to give variety. So we wanted to give the kind of maps that traditional strategy RTS players are used to, in like a 1v1 or a 2 versus 2, like this map here, a 2 versus 2 that people would be more familiar with. And all the way up to what we think is something we're bringing very, very unique to the current game market, which is these huge 28 versus 28 battles or 56 player battles. So we wanted to build that variety, and what we found is that map design is extremely important and very different for those different sizes. So in a map like this, you can make something very focused. That's fun, part of the gameplay. People are always bumping into each other here, which is very different than a 28 versus 28. The map is much bigger, and also we want to give reasons for groups of players to simultaneously be in different parts of the map. So it's a bunch of battles in a war is when you get to those bigger maps.
Yeah.
And in between, we have every map we design for different numbers of players comes out very differently. So a lot of lessons learned.
And for someone just joining the chat, yes, Nations is a free-to-play RTS. And someone else is asking about the ranking system. Can you talk a little bit more about how the ranking system works?
Yes, we have leaderboards in game. I'm not sure if that's the question. So you can see how you're ranked in different things like wins, losses, and kills, and that sort of thing. So if you're that kind of person, then we have that for you there. But also our matchmaking system is based on ELO rating. So like the rating system that chess uses in a lot of other online games, which takes a lot of those things into account, as well as your level when we're matchmaking players to try to give people a chance to play with people closest to their skill level.
Someone is also asking, is there a tutorial? Do you jump right in? Do you always have to play against people? I can say simply, yes, there is a tutorial.
Yes.
But you can take the rest of that question.
Yes, there is a tutorial. No, you don't always have to play against other players. So, for instance, one of the maps we've been playing recently, we call Hold the Line, which is, it's cooperative, but you're fighting against waves of AI. So there's different waves you see how long you can last in those waves. So those sort of cooperative maps where all the factions can play together against the Order of Nations, we definitely want to include those as well. And as we go forward, we'll be adding more of those types of player versus environment maps.
That's another interesting thing that I've always found, and I think that this game has interesting bits of story built into it, because there is, of course, a lore behind it.
Yeah.
How'd you decide where to put that in, especially, with people talking in the game without distracting people from, obviously, the pretty tense strategy?
Yeah, no one's interested in reading, so we really wanted to give as many ways possible to give our story to everyone, in an easy format. So, just choosing your faction in the beginning and choosing your class, there's the background story of the game right there in that selection. Every map we've created, we also created a mission briefing, which is a short video that not only talks about how to play that particular map, but it's all done with the story of the game. So a good way to learn about how the map works as well as story. And a lot of our maps also have, we call them barks. So a character from the game will pop up and give you information about what's going on. And those are fully voiced over, so you don't have to sit there and read text. And then finally, or maybe not finally, but another one is our heroes and elite companies that we have. They all are characters from the lore. So they have personality and images and where they fit into the storyline. It's all kind of interwoven to that. So it's very interactive in that way. And you kind of learn all this over time. And then another piece is just the maps themselves and where they are in the world, and the imagery and the buildings is all part of that storytelling.
Now, I guess that we've gotten a couple requests to talk a little bit more about, looking over Lance's shoulder. Can you explain more pieces of the UI? You can clearly tell it's the end of the day. Talk about the map and everything else, all those other modules that you see.
Yeah, so the top middle, you see, hit the allies versus, I can't even read that from here. Anyway, that's like the scoreboard. Every map, since every map plays a little differently, has a unique scoreboard. And on the top there, you see on the left side, there's each side has two little factories. Those are those automated factories that are shooting out units. So if you destroy one, that'll gray out on the UI to help you tell that. And then the stars are the points you need to take to drop the shield. So that's unique to this particular map. Now, we talked about the loadout tray in the middle bottom. Bottom left, you see the mini-map, so you can see where your units are and where your enemies are. You can also use our ping system to ping on the map and let your allies know, where you might need help. And then in the upper right, usually there's missions that go along with these maps too, to kind of remind you about what the point is, and also another way of kind of giving a little bit of that story. When you're going around, you'll see those red circles or green circles on the screen. Those are the actual control points. And when it's green, it means you own it, and red means the enemy owns it. And when you take those, you'll see it tick up, so it takes a little while to take control of it. And every unit in the game has a different speed in which they take control points. And the number of units also factor into that too. Where in general, infantry are the best at taking those control points.
And someone just said, was asking about the middle module, which is your loadout tray.
Yeah. So you can see the honeycomb there. It's your units in order. You see the giant hex. That's usually where you'd have a hero unit. If you're playing with one, you don't have to. And then next to that is your units themselves. To the right of that are structures, and to the right of that are commander abilities. The little UI elements on the very, very left of that screen is things like if you want to change your company, or when a unit dies and you want to bring in your reinforcements. Looks like Lance is actually switching out his company right now, so you can see how that happens.
So, Lance, why did you switch out your company?
It was a poor choice for the map. The enemy team actually switched up their companies for this battle, so my choice didn't work out so well.
So what choice did you have, and what did they change to?
So, I changed to Guardians and Shivas, which are better against the heavy units that they have, because my Vulcans, my anti-infantry, were useless because they didn't have any infantry.
And what are Vulcans good against?
Vulcans are good against infantry. It's basically a flame tank. Whereas my Shivas will destroy all their heavy tanks, and my Vulcans could not.
So the Guardian infantry have the ability to lock down in place and increase their damage and range. They're really good to use in this kind of map against these units. And the Shiva tanks he has also, when they shoot, they fire straight through other units. So if you have units lined up, you can actually hit multiple units. So interesting if you're the type of person who likes to always be moving your vehicles around and kind of wanting to micromanage that part, the Shiva tanks is good for that kind of person.
And just to give some people some background who are just joining the stream, this is End of Nations. That's in alpha right now, but we are heading towards beta coming soon. So if you do want to sign up for a chance to get into beta, go to endofnations.com and sign up for an account, get your name on the list. And also, if you're excited and you're loving everything you see, go to endofnations.com and pre-order the Founders Edition. You can find out a whole host of stuff. You may know them all off the top of your head. I don't have everything in the Founders Edition memorized.
I'd rather have everyone explore it
yes,
themselves.
but there are lots of perks and cool things that make it a really awesome deal. So please, if you are liking what you're seeing, go sign up for the beta because it is coming soon. As for those who want the mug, the mug is very cool. And we do sometimes do cool giveaways. So if you go to End of Nations on Twitter or End of Nations on Facebook, both of them have that. So twitter.com/endofnations or facebook.com/endofnations. There's a chance that maybe some cool stuff will happen. The other thing is we'll have really cool information, and you can talk to Lance there as well, which is good. So, and you can also follow us on the page if you are digging this, so you can find out anytime we go live again with more End of Nations.
Yeah, just want to remind people, maybe people have seen the game for the first time, that this is just, one example of one type of map, that we have a bunch of different type of maps, all different sizes and types. I think that's a big plus to kind of be able to explore all the different types and being able to make different companies for those. So I really encourage you to sign up for beta.
Yeah, as we said, you
coming soon.
Coming soon. Anywhere from 2 to 56 people on a map, so lots of variety and competitive and co-op. So Lance, how are you doing this time around? Are you on your way to victory, or are they learning?
We got pushed back, and now we're pushing back to take control of the middle of the map. So, making progress.
I don't know if you're making progress. Looks like you're actually losing.
We were losing. We're about to win.
So there is a guy. His name starts with EZ4, and just so you know, if I am selecting your name, you will be getting perhaps a message in your inbox. So look for it, which will be cool. Maybe something alpha oriented. He's asking about the cash shop. I don't know how much you really want to go into detail about that, but can you talk about a little bit about the earned wealth and money and
Happy to talk about it. So yeah, we have 2 currencies in the game. We have wealth, which we talked about how you earn every time you're playing in a battle, and also, of course, you can buy currency to use to spend. The only things that that we really are selling just for money are cosmetic items like the skins and things you'd find in other things you'd expect for that. But anything else, like if for instance you want to buy 10 of the Colossus units, you can either use wealth or our currency to buy those. So you really have the choice whether or not you want to spend your money just from playing to do it, or if you want to get things faster. But there's a lot of balance here too. So you can't get a unit unless you unlock it through your research tree. So you can't jump ahead and get things. And also, since we have these point loadouts, if he had 10 Colossi, 10
Yes.
Colossi, he would not be able to use them all at once anyway, because the point loadout limit in his loadout tray. So it may give you some flexibility or ease of use to make multiple companies to make things faster for you, but it's not that wouldn't increase your power anyway. You can always just use wealth.
Switching gears a bit, but Ponxer26 has a really good question, which is, are all units ranged? Are there any melee?
We do not have any melee units.
There are ones that are super long range and ones that
Yes.
you do have to get close up. I mean, there are some that are
Yes.
really long ranged in this game.
Yes, we have some artillery is really long range, and a lot of units do have abilities and powers that are short range, like maybe exploding just around them and that sort of thing. But we don't have a dude with a club, I guess is the way to say it.
Well, you've got to really think about this. I mean, this is, futuristic
Yeah, if you have
war.
if you're hitting somebody with something like that, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could have like a really big helmet on, but
Okay,
it would
I'll put that on the list. Big helmet.
That'll be mine. So people are asking about the skins. I think people are liking them. Lance, do you have a skin on something?
Currently don't have any skins on. Earlier game had a red skin on.
Yes.
Nothing now.
Yeah, so we have skins that are something as simple as just different colors. If you want hot pink tanks, that's there for you.
He maintains it was red.
It was
Yeah.
definitely red.
Whatever, it's fine. And then, also different kinds of skins, like if you want leopard print or camouflage or bacon or a lot of other variety of things, we're going to have those available as well.
And just so you guys know, I just put the chat on slow mode because you guys were going pretty fast and overwhelming me, and I apologize because I know slow mode can be annoying, but there are a lot of you here, and I'm happy about that, and I want to read your stuff.
Yay.
So people are asking about different types of units, you know, healers, teleporters, mini-map jammers, stuff like that. Do we have stuff like that?
Yeah, and then the largest sense, the different types of units we have are heavy units, light units, infantry, air, and then structures. Now, of course, within all those, they all have their different reasons for existing. So, like in the first map, we had the Archimedes, which is a light strike vehicle, but really, it's also its point is a scout vehicle because it has those tactical observer ability. Right now, Lance is using the Shivas and Guardians still.
Correct.
Right. So, you know, they all have different ways of working in the map.
And I am seeing a lot of new faces, so I know that I've asked you this before, but can you give a bit of an overview of the map we're playing right now for people who may be new and what we're doing?
We're playing Icebreaker, which is a 2 versus 2 PvP map where the goal is to destroy the other side's base. And in order to do that, you have to bring down the other side's shield first, which means you have to take and hold 2 out of the 3 victory point control points. That's the basics of the map. It takes place on a battleship that was got stuck in ice. So you're playing on the battleship as well as on the ice nearby. So it's a fairly small map in size since it's only 2 versus 2 compared to some of our other really big maps. But there's still, you know, enough space around where, you know, you can try to sneak around the back, and if you're the tricky type.
And someone, Banito, I think your name is, yes, Banito, asked a good question about more of the longer term or the metagame. And we're not showing the world map in the war room today, but can you talk about how individual battles impact the global initiative?
Hola, Banito! Yes, so Lance is playing an Icebreaker right now, and you know, you play everyone in their side. It's faction versus faction for these PvP maps. And by playing battles on these maps, eventually that territory will flip for one faction or the other. So we have this global map where this metagame for territory control goes on, and you can see all the maps we have available are on there. And as they flip for the faction, they'll turn the faction color, and then the other faction is trying to fight to take it back. And by holding territory, what you're doing is gaining a small territory buff for your side. And also, you know, there's currency earned, there's wealth earned from that. And these games are also another way, these seasons, I guess, they're done in seasons. And it's another way in which we're giving story. So which maps are part of the metagame, and you know, what's going on in those maps is all part of telling the story for that season. And at the end of that season, which may be, let's say, a month long, there'll be a winning faction declared. There'll be more rewards given for the winning faction. And then a new season will start with a new storyline. It's also a great way for us to introduce new units and maps is through these stories.
Someone asks can you run out of units during the battle? Is that possible?
No, but you can run out of resources. So, you know, like I said, if your units are killed in battle, you can bring them back using tactical resources. And you know, you always get a slow trickle of resources, so they're always coming in no matter what. But there's also resource control points that you want to take on the map, which your side will get more resources. So some maps play in a way in which one of the tactics is to resource starve the other side by taking and controlling those resource points. So it's definitely a way to play certain maps.
Somebody just said this game looks like Command & Conquer on crack, which I thought was funny. I don't know what a game on crack would look like, but it would be a scary thing, I think, probably. So someone is asking about how long the game is. I got this a little bit before chat too, and that's a difficult question because for me, I feel like this is an endless game. I can't really talk about it in terms of hours. Really, we're making this for a game that you can play whenever, however. It's not like
forever.
Yeah, forever. It's not really like a linear type of game, especially with
I
seasons.
mean, you're going up in levels, and there is cap, but this is a living game. I mean, once we launch is when we're really starting, adding new maps and units and levels and whatever the people that are playing want. And it's also, you know, we have competitive side to this, and we also have all these different combinations of units and abilities. So the replayability here is extremely high. Who are you playing against? What units are you using? What units are they using? What map are you on? There's a near infinite combinations that you're going to want to be playing with.
Someone's also asking how many units can be on a map, and that obviously scales as the map scales.
Yeah, so you could see Lance's loadout tray there. Actually, each class has a different number of spaces for unit structures and abilities. But this gives you a general idea of how many units he could bring into a map. So he has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 slots. So let's just take that as a rough number. So on a 56-player map, that's 560 units plus structures as well.
Some good math.
Math. Everyone wants to do math. You take the square root of that, and it equals a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess checking in with Lance, how are you doing? Still winning?
Going back and forth.
Going back and forth?
Pretty even right now.
Giving them a run for their money?
Making progress. It's pretty even right now.
So what have they been doing differently this time that's made the game last longer? What's been going on?
So they've changed their companies a couple times to get a good company that counters my current company. So I'm thinking about changing companies to a different one currently so I can keep up with them.
And so what have they changed to?
So I went to a combination of heavy units and some infantry that are good against heavy units. They moved to a combination of units that are good against my heavies.
Which is? What do they got?
Stalkers, actually.
So,
They're destroying my Shivas quite quickly.
So Stalkers are a stealth infantry unit that one of the classes in the Shadow Revolution has. I think they're really fun to play. So when they're not moving, when they have ability, they can lock down in place. They stealth, and then their first attack after that is super high damage, and they're really good against heavy. So you have a squad of these stealth infantry hiding somewhere. Some giant Colossus tank or Titan comes by, boom, jump out and just decimate it. So it's a great counter to those big Spartan tanks that we saw earlier.
So what would you be thinking about changing to if you were going to change your company again, Lance?
I'm kind of stuck right now. I don't really have anything good that would kill Stalkers.
Vulcans.
Except for my 4 Vulcans.
It would be great if you had some artillery too.
Yeah, artillery would be great.
Pretty good against these, especially the Stalkers that have to lock in place when they're stealthed and waiting. So if you can find a way to break their stealth, like for instance the Archimedes we started with, that tactical observer ability where you could see an area, also will unstealth units, be able to see stealth units. So being able to catch those Stalkers unaware and lob a bunch of artillery in there would be a great way to counter that.
Definitely.
And moving back to some questions, Liquid Birdie, number 2, asked how balancing units works.
Perfectly. It's a huge challenge, obviously. Any RTS game balancing units is probably the biggest task. And we decided right off the bat that the 2 factions were going to be asymmetric, that they're going to play very differently from each other. So it's not just a cut and paste, which would make balance a lot simpler. So that's why we're playing the heck out of this thing. And we're in alpha right now, and we have been for a few months. So that's what we're doing. That's one of the big things we're doing, is playing and balancing, playing and balancing, playing and balancing, and that will never stop.
And that's why the people who are asking good questions are really going to be welcome in alpha. And all of you guys who are signing up for beta right now, which if you've just joined and you want to be in beta, go to endofnations.com and sign up for a chance to get into beta, because we will be letting people in, because we really do want people to come and bang on the game and
absolutely
give us feedback and tell us about how things are. So I missed the last question that I was going to get, but somebody is asking again about co-op. Might be new to the chat, so want to talk a little bit more about co-op missions?
Yeah, we are going to have co-op maps, and they're going to take a bunch of different forms. The most obvious is the one that I already mentioned, where it's cooperatively playing against waves of AI, so more of we call it like a survival map. But we're going to have other maps that are more centered around actually completing missions and part of the storyline, having objectives to complete. All those are coming.
Can you unskill commander skills and change them to others, which I know we did mention before.
Yeah, there is a respec ability in the research lab in their tech tree, so if you want to start over, that is a possibility.
Yes, and yes, Ecor, you can play either faction. That is something that we encourage.
Yeah, so you can create a commander of either faction. You cannot switch your faction once you create a commander, but we are a free-to-play game, so we're not going to stop people from playing one faction or the other because that is impossible.
Yes, that is true. So what are you doing right now? Lance, give us an update on how the battle is going.
We're actually making a push to their command center as we've taken down the shields. So, trying to win right now, actually, which is always important.
So what do they have? Are those Slayers? I can't tell from here.
They've got Stalkers, Dreadfires, a few Honeybees, which are repair units.
Yeah, I think that playing these two matches, didn't know how it was going to go, obviously. I'm glad the Balance team did step it up and give him a run for his money. But as you can see, it really depends on how the loadouts go and how the teams stack up, and very importantly, especially with larger matches, how you guys work together, because games can end quickly, but a lot of the times you can get locked in these epic combat where really thinking strategically and changing your companies and being quick on your feet is so important.
The Honeybees is interesting to bring up because the question earlier about different types. So the more specific, there's the Honeybee. Their point is being a healing unit. So there's a lot of different types of units and play differently. There's units that do stun attacks and slow attacks and pretty much anything we can think of.
Roku's, I'm sorry if I'm saying any of your names wrong, is asking if there's going to be penalty or anything against people who leave a match or maybe sit there and don't do anything. What do you do with those kinds of naughty, pesky players?
Yeah, we're looking into a couple different methods to dealing with those people. We really hope positive reinforcement works. So obviously you won't get anything for doing that, and even losers are rewarded as long as you play. But we are definitely looking to different methods to
we
care
don't call
those
them
people.
losers. We call them winners for next time.
No, we call them losers. In this case, we're all gonna lose. It's okay.
Tank You Kindly, which again, you get extra points in my book for having an awesome name, is asking that the UI is very interesting. How did you come about the design? I'm sure there was a lot of iteration in the UI.
Yes, a lot of iteration in the UI. There's a couple things we thought of. There's a lot of artistic choices here, but I'm guessing that's not what you're talking about. We wanted to, through our gameplay and testing, the unique features of our game really started to come out more and more. And we started with the idea of, let's try to create a user interface that people that play strategy games or RTS games are used to. So mini-map and loadout, or the things you see that they're familiar. And then anything that you see is different is just because we've been playing and thought, well, what does this game need? So for instance, every unit has a unique ability. So where do we put those unique abilities? We place them right above the units themselves. And what you can't see here is each one of those slots those are slotted in are assigned to a hotkey that you can pre-sort before you get in there, so the way to set your hotkeys for every unit ability, which is not something you normally see in an RTS game. Not every unit will have an ability, so you don't have to deal with that many of them. So that's some of the choices we had when trying to build our interface.
So just checking in with Lance again, you seem to still be making that push. How is it going?
We're doing good. Their base is down to half health, so...
He's also pretty low on tactical resources, so I don't know if he's going to continue to be able to keep this push up.
I feel pretty good.
Somebody did ask earlier if you can heal units. That's
so we saw the Honeybee, where that is a unit you can bring in that heals. There's also structures that heal, and there's abilities that heal. So every class, has some way to do that. Some classes are better than others, like the Patriot class, which is also part of Liberation Front, has a lot of buffs and debuffs and healing and that sort of stuff. So they're really particularly good at that. And a lot of these maps, too, if you go back to your landing zone where you first started, there's a slow heal there as well.
But that's, not going to be what Lance wants to do.
No, that is
Definitely
not a
not
good
now.
thing to do.
So what is
Oh.
that big red marker?
Success.
Oh, you did it!
Yep. Good final push.
Congratulations.
Good teamwork, definitely.
Congratulations.
The big red marker is actually a commander ability.
Yep.
But
Well,
you'll have to learn more about that next time, because we were only going to play 2 maps today.
oh.
Yes. There is going to be a collective sigh of sadness, but just so you guys know, this is the first of many of these that we're going to do. So we'll have new maps, we'll have new companies, we'll have new challenges, so more things for you to ask about. If you like this, again, please follow our channel, so the next time we go live, you will hear about it. Like us on Facebook at End of Nations, or follow us on Twitter at End of Nations, so that you can talk to Lance and find out whenever we're doing other cool giveaways and events like this. And thank you for coming out and watching. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And
Thanks, guys. Definitely.
yeah. And congratulations on winning. I'm sure you won't win every time we live stream.
We'll see.
So maybe next
We'll
time.
definitely see.
Maybe next time we'll see Lance fall to someone else.
Perhaps. Perhaps.
So have a good night, guys. And again, thank you so much for coming to our first live stream.